Good morning, everyone. We'd like to thank everyone for attending our Lunch and Learn, and we're going to go ahead and get started. We've got a lot of good information, and we got some great presenters on the program here today, and we'd like to welcome everyone.
All right. To go over today's agenda, first we will start off with an introduction of our director and our outreach staff by Miss Onika Porter. Then we'll have a mini commercial, and then we will have a mini commercial featuring our fair housing hotline. Then we will have the introduction of today's presenters, homelessness in Houston. Then we will come back with our upcoming events by Ms. Deja Jones and then our final remarks. Now we will have Ms. Onika Porter for the introduction of our director and our outreach staff.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Onika Porter. I would like to introduce our new interim director, HCD interim director, Mr. Keith W. Bynum, and our outreach team. Myself, Onika Porter, I'm the administrative manager. Latasha Smith is the community involvement coordinator. Pedro Sosa, our community liaison. Becky Benitez is the community liaison, and Deja Nate Jones is also a community liaison.
All right. At this time, we'd like to introduce our first guest. Our first guest is Ms. Dimitri Tubbs, Manager of Outreach Services 2 from the Star of Hope Mission. So at this time, we want to give her our undivided attention, and we'd like to turn the program over to Ms. Di Tubbs.
Good morning, everyone. I'm about to upload my presentation. Thank you all so much for having me this morning. I'm super excited. Phenomenal Friday to you all. What a beautiful program that you have to empower and impact the community with some great information about social services. And as you can see, I'm from Star of Hope Mission, and we work closely together with the City of Houston on many projects. So I'm just excited and happy to be here this morning. I won't be long. So I have a few slides I'm going to share with you all. And by all means, we're going to ask questions at the end. And so let's get started. As you can see by my first slide, I've been with the Star of Hope Mission for almost 18 years, coming up really soon on my 18-year anniversary. And I've been just blessed to just share love and truth and strong values with families on many capacities and various programs that we have to offer. I started out as the personal development instructor, and I've had the privilege of working with one of your colleagues, Ms. Latasha Smith, many moons ago when she was the computer learning center teacher. And we just had an amazing time there. And from that personal development instructor, career development instructor to now manager of outreach services. About 10 years ago, Star of Hope was casting vision, and we saw that there was an opportunity to serve families in a greater capacity. And so I'm going to share some of those ways and how the outreach team exists today and what we do in the community. But before I do that, I always love to share our mission statement because we take great heart and pride in what we do and serving the least of these. Star of Hope is a Christ-centered community dedicated to meeting the needs of homeless men, women, and their children. Positive life changes are encouraged through structured programs, which focuses on spiritual growth, education, employment, life management, recovery from substance abuse. And as you can see, we've been around for a long time, a key staple in the community as it relates to homelessness for more than 100 years. I believe we just celebrated 114 on July the 1st. The Outreach Department. Star of Hope's Mission's Outreach Department is designed to extend Star of Hope's reach deep into the Houston community and surrounding areas. We seek to partner with churches, community agencies to provide services, information, and referrals. And of course, spiritual enrichment is the heart of our mission. The Outreach Department hosts community events in collaboration with churches and other agencies to raise community awareness of the homeless and near homeless crisis community. We evangelize, we provide services and referrals to those in Houston and surrounding cities. We also work heavily in the Conroe area. I have a staff member who provides community service projects and events, as well as social services in regards to case management for the homeless community there and also near homeless families. Some of the terminology that we like to use to help community partners and other agencies understand how we serve various individuals and families is the word STAR. And we made up the acronym calling it serving those at risk. And so the STAR Outreach Program, we accept phone calls, web inquiries, and other requests for assistance, from prayer requests, from monetary assistance. Sometimes there's food assistance, diaper assistance, clothing assistance, or maybe even a bus ticket back to Arkansas or North Carolina, because I did help a family getting back home to their family a couple of months ago. We also provide supportive services or preventive services in the area of hotel assistance, rental assistance, and deposits, and that could be up to $500 depending on the circumstance. We work heavily with the Houston Furniture Bank, and we provide vouchers for beds, sofas, dressers, depending on the circumstance, and depending on what's needed for the family is determined if the family qualifies for the type of furniture that they're asking for. And we do require the client who is asking for the furniture to take some responsibility and pay for the delivery fee. There are other monetary assistance as it relates to Metro Money, gift cards, and we also purchase groceries from time to time for families as well. And all these are on a case-by-case basis. Throughout the holiday season, we provide food baskets in regards to Thanksgiving and Christmas time. And we also provide household items. So when those individuals that we often see underneath the bridges and on the street corners are blessed with the opportunity to receive housing, we provide a welcome home kit. Some of our satellite offices are here in Houston, and we are right in the heart of Park Yellowstone apartment homes. We have an office right on that property off of 288 in Yellowstone. As I said before, we're in Conroe, and Michelle works with Community Assistance Center, Salvation Army, Montgomery County Women's Center, and there's a couple of other churches that we're working with as well. Throughout the year, especially when we're not living in a pandemic, we love to be in the community having various outreach events to let many people know about what we do at Star of Hope. Many of you are familiar with our Women and Family Development Center, as well as our Men Development Center, but many people don't know about extended services and the outreach team and what we have to offer. So one of the ways that we go about doing this is sharing our Taking Hope to the Streets event, where we allow volunteers to come alongside of our staff members, and we will go out throughout the city of Houston and begin to engage the homeless community, reminding them about Star of Hope opportunities that they have, and we provide a bag of hope. We call it our Hope Bags. And many of you have made some of these bags before, because inside of that Hope Bag is the hygiene items that we give out daily, from to the toothpaste, the toothbrush, the socks, the snacks, the razors, and of course a Hope inspirational card to remind them that there is a better way of living. We have various back to school events in Conroe as well as Houston. And again, those are Thanksgiving baskets. We do that yearly as well. And since we're getting ready for the holiday season, Thanksgiving is coming up, and we also have Christmas. We have a program, the Glad Tidings Adopt a Family Christmas Program. And this is for qualifying families to be able to receive sponsorship for their children. I have a slide that's coming up in a little bit that'll be able to allow you to see how you can refer individuals to this program. The Love and Action Van. Many of you have seen our Love and Action Van canvas throughout the city of Houston, engaging with various populations downtown and maybe even on the outskirts, or maybe they're just driven by you as they're going to help a family in need or an individual. And here you see a picture of a gentleman who actually was just blessed with the opportunity to move into his apartment just 2 weeks ago. We call this story From Tent to Tenant. And so here you see John with, I can't remember the gentleman's name, with this young man. And as they prepared to, literally, he went to go pick him up off the streets, and that is downtown Houston. And he drove him to his new apartment complex. So while the Love and Action Van is primarily evangelistic in nature, many other services are provided daily. Basic needs are distributed to those living in the streets of Houston. I talked about that water, those hygiene kits, the help bags. We also provide food, clothing, and linen, that welcome home package. The outreach case manager conducts a coordinated access assessment and navigates individuals and families into housing, rapid rehousing, and permanent supportive housing. The goal of the outreach case manager is to develop a rapport and trust with those homeless on the street. But we also help this individual with health assessments, housing assessments, and most importantly, reminding them that this is a better way of living and helping them to stay connected either with Star of Hope Mission or their case managers that they may have been connected to through the agency in which they received this housing opportunity. So that's a little bit about our.
Half the time our internet ain't even working, so.
That's a little bit about our Love and Action Van. We also have a staff member in the outreach department who is called the SOH Resource Specialist. The Houston Recovery Center, as many of you know about, is definitely connected to the City of Houston because it's a nonprofit agency in which the City of Houston provides the funding for this particular entity. The Houston Recovery Center, or many of you may know it as the Sobriety Center, it helps those that are battling any type of addiction from drugs to alcohol. HPD and other law enforcement agencies bring publicly intoxicated individuals to sober up at the Sobriety Center rather than taking them to jail. The SOH Resource Specialist works primarily with those who have been admitted to the Sobriety Center to help them understand that there is a better way. So this individual has an opportunity to not only have resources in regards to the clothing, the food, but this is a connection in how we can let this individual know the Men's Development Center is here for you if you would like to learn more about our programs, or we can connect you with another treatment program that is also throughout the City of Houston that can provide you with the help that you need. The SOH Resource Specialist also provides transportation, referrals, clothing, evangelism, prayer, and other services to help this client to become successful in their recovery. And for more information on how to connect with the outreach team, you can email us directly at outreach@sohmission.org, and this email goes to the entire team. I'm the manager of outreach services, and I have 3 outreach case managers who go out on the streets daily to engage the homeless, and they would love to connect with any of you. Some of them have maybe even already worked with you before. If you have a family or an individual who's trying to inquire about some of the services that I just spoke about, this is the bit.ly that they can connect to, and it's a form that they can fill out. For more information about intake in regards to our Women and Family Development Center or our Men's Development Center, I've provided the SOH website, and it can give you some really key details in regards to what you need to do in going to our shelters, and that's sohmission.org. And in closing, before I turn it over for questions, you may want to screenshot this page. This is the contact information for myself, my staff members who are outreach case managers who drive those Love and Action Vans, and also Michelle Jones is the case manager who works in the Montgomery County area from Spring all the way to Conroe in regards to providing assistance to families in need from housing to various other social services. And I talked a little bit about that Christmas program, but at the bottom of the screen, you can see Glad Tidings, Adopt a Family program. There are key requirements in regards to being qualified for the program. But if you go to the website at sohmission.org, Adopt a Family, you'll be able to get all the details, whether it's a recipient that's interested in applying for the program, or if you desire to be a sponsor to adopt a family, all the information is there. And so, good people, this is a Good Friday. My presentation is over, and if you guys have any questions for me, I'm definitely ready to answer them.
All right, thank you, Ms. Dye, for the great information and presentation. At this time, if anyone has any questions, if they could please put them in the chat, and then we'll continue with these questions and see what we can do to get them answered. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat for Ms. Dye. Do we have any questions for Ms. Di Tubbs?
Wow, I guess I was that great. What an amazing day this is. I thought I was going to be on here to 12. Well,
Okay. Well, we appreciate it, and guess what? They may have questions at the end of another presentation. So just if you hang tight with us and stick with us, we'll see what happens. Okay?
oh, I see a question. Hold on, Mr.
Okay. All right.
Someone just asked, how does someone get Love and Action Van to come to a specific area? By simply just calling or sending us an email. For example, we've had concerned community callers call about an individual sleeping in front of their business, or just calling about an individual that they may have seen laying on a park bench for too long, one too many hours, and they're just concerned. There's also an opportunity for you to connect with the HOT team, the homeless outreach team. We work very closely with them as well. Closely with them as well. If the situation.
But no, we did evict him, but he appealed, so you're gonna have to go through that now. But he claimed he can't find no attorney.
So if the situation is beyond our control and we need some more assistance, we definitely reach out to the homeless outreach team, HPD officers, to assist us. However, you're more than welcome to send me an email, one of the gentlemen that I listed on the screenshot, Brandon, John, or Ray. You can give them a call in regards to assessing you with the situation, and we'd be more than happy to come out and help. There's also an opportunity for you to serve as a volunteer and do a ride along with one of my staff members. We definitely encourage all volunteers to come out and work with us and support the work that we do. So if any of you are interested in doing that, you can contact myself or again, John, Ray, or Brandon. I'll share that. I think I've already shared it with Miss Latasha and Mr. Pedro in regards to that information, how you can contact us. But by all means, again, we would love to definitely assist you if you have a question or a concern about a gentleman or a young lady or a family. I think Amanda Cinco has a question. Her hand is up. I'm not certain if I answered her question, but I see for furniture assistance, does the client have to be a resident of SOH? They do not. Actually, we only assist clients if they're living in an apartment. So this is someone who's moving into an apartment, moving into a home. So our families that are in our Women and Family Development Center and our Men's Development Center, those units have already been housed. So furniture requests from Houston Furniture Bank is not given to those families that are inside of our development centers. So if you have a family, let's say, for example, families moving out of their mom's house. She's 19, 18, 20, and she's ready to soar and spread her wings, has a job, but just doesn't have the means to be able to buy the needed things for her home, especially like the mattresses. Houston Furniture Bank has a program called No Child Left on the Floor. And so with that, we have a discounted rate to be able to buy mattresses and beds for the children. And of course, we do key interviewing with all of our families to make sure that they qualify for the program. So all that person would have to do is just either fill out the Star Outreach Form inquiry link, and one of my staff members will call them to do an assessment to see what their needs are, and then let them know what they need to do to qualify for those services, and if they are qualified for those services. How can we connect someone that is facing homelessness soon due to evictions, or if someone incurs bed bugs and needs somewhere to stay, or in a wheelchair or disabled? Definitely will need to call us so that we can get some more questions in regards to the situation. But if they're facing the eviction, I know that eviction process is pretty lengthy, but if it's already going on through the lengthy process in regards to they've gone to court, they told them this is it, you don't have another 30 days, then definitely they can call us and we can give them some options in regards to our developmental center program, or maybe they are willing to go to Conroe or Baytown or to another city. And as it relates to the bug beds, we would definitely have to talk more about the situation in regards to seeing how we could help. We always ask the apartment complex What have they done to be able to help the client? So we try to help them advocate as much as possible. And then we also ask the apartment agency, are they willing to work with us and working with the client by either moving them to another unit? But in situations like that, we would definitely need more information in order to be able to provide the better service and social service and answer to the need. How long is intake to go into the shelter and how long can they stay? Well, the intake process can be part one can be done over the phone, but I really encourage anybody and everybody to get there as early as possible, Monday through Friday, at our Women and Family Development Center on Reed Road, 2575. It's a beautiful new location. If you haven't had a chance to go to our website to look at it, then I would encourage you to do so. And Lisa Johnson and Shannon Booker, and I'll share these phone numbers and names with Miss Latasha, and then way she can email them out to the group, are the intake coordinators. They can give all the detailed information in regards to what the client will need, talk about the programs, and let the individual know in advance if they're not willing to come in person in regards to what's offered at those particular facilities. Since I don't no longer work at that property anymore, I don't have the key information in regards to the length of time. But as far as the intake interview goes, it can be done in an hour or less. It just depends on the individual and how long they take to answer the questions. And then at that time, of course, Ms. Lisa and Ms. Shannon can let the individuals know with a phone call. Any of you can call at any given point too and ask, is intake available? Is there availability at Women and Family Development Center? And if there is, yes. And last time I checked last week, they did have some space available. And if space is available, then I highly encourage someone who's needing a place to stay and is willing to start this amazing program that we have. We have several programs to meet the needs of the families and clients. Then I would definitely encourage that individual to get there as soon as possible. An intake is from Monday through Friday, and I believe it starts as early as 8 a.m. And they have a lunch break, but I'm not certain what time in the afternoon that it ends. I would like to say 2. Someone said, what is the bit link for? The bit link is for any client, individual or family, who is inquiring about a specific social service, whether it's food, clothing, diapers, rental assistance, furniture assistance, assistance to a bus ticket, assistance to et cetera, social services. Oh, you want me to show the link again? Okay. I'm going to actually try and copy it in this chat. No, that didn't work. I just copied my screening for my COVID testing for my job. That's weird.
It has a different question. Someone's asking, is there somewhere in particular for a senior citizen to get some outreach information or need or assistance when facing homelessness? Are there different programs for the elderly? Maybe that's what they're trying to ask.
They can also call Women and Family Development Center as well. There's a program called the Restore Program that's catered towards our senior citizen population. But Lisa Johnson and Shannon Booker can also give the fine details and the qualifications for that program, as well as there's a program called Restore 2 for our Men's Development Center as well.
Okay. Well, thanks for that great information. What we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and bring on the other presenter. And if anyone comes up with any questions while we're have the other presenter on, please keep them to the end as well. And then that way we'll have both of the presenters able to answer any of your questions.
All right. Thank you all again. I had a great time. God bless you. Have a phenomenal Friday and make it a great weekend. God bless. Bye-bye.
All right. And at this time, we're going to go ahead and bring our second presenter on, Mark Eckenbaum, as Special Assistant to the Mayor's Office for Homeless Initiatives. And we're going to go ahead and turn the mic over to Mark.
Great, thank you. Let me share some slides real quick.
Sure.
Alrighty. Well, thank you for having me on. I think what we just all heard was details of a homeless service agency that is a provider in the field and the amazing work they do. I'm going to pull out and we're going to go from the micro level down more to the macro level of what does our response look like, our regional response look like in the Houston area, and what is that system that is meant to have to respond to homelessness not only across the 600 plus square miles of the city, but we know homelessness, it shouldn't matter which side of the street you are on, to who you go to get services, and which governmental entity is responsible. That's why we look at this regional. So it's the county, and it's even more than the county. It even includes Fort Bend and even Montgomery County. And so we always start by looking at where we were. And back in 2011, we had more than 8,500 individuals experiencing homelessness every single night. And that we were actually ranked, we had the 8th largest homeless population in the country. And for those that were homeless, it was pretty difficult to access the services that were provided. You really had to talk to the right person on the right day in the right organization that had the right knowledge of, some magical housing facility unit that might be open for you, that would be willing to lease to you. And it would be very, very difficult. This would be very difficult to navigate for a housed person, let alone somebody who's experiencing homelessness. It would be virtually impossible to able to successfully navigate. And it was difficult for a lot of the agencies too. You're looking for funding coming from 4 sources, but there are over 30 different funding sources from those 4 entities. And so, each one of those funding grants has different rules and restrictions and eligibility criteria. And it's really, a nightmare. It's difficult to do now, but it really was a nightmare back then, even for the funding to happen. And there wasn't really much coordination going on. And so at the time, the mayor at the time said, we really need to change how we're doing it. Right now, we're really spending all of our time, effort, and resources on managing homelessness. That's really focused on, managing the kind of the symptoms of homelessness. I'm homeless, therefore I'm hungry. So we're focusing on food. We're focusing on short-term shelter. We're focusing on clothing. And we're focused on just managing the issue. And when you focus on just managing the issue and just trying to make sure people continue to survive, but on the streets, the problem is we're not solving it. So the mayor said, we need to change our mindset. We need to transition from managing it and really focused on solving the issue. And we really got to be focused on whatever is going to move the needle on homelessness. So there's a ton of good homeless ideas out there and programs out there, but we want to be lasered focused on whatever we can bring to scale that is going to move that needle by responding and solving homelessness. We were spending tens of millions of dollars every year, and every agency had a great anecdotal story of somebody's life who was transformed, but we still had a growing homeless population, and we still had one of the highest populations in the country. That was not enough. How can we really, once again, bring it to scale and move that needle? And so one of the very first tenets is the basic root cause of homelessness is they're without a home. They are homeless. And so we can always go up that ladder and we can look at, okay, maybe it's mental health, maybe it's substance abuse, maybe it's the justice system, maybe it's the lack of health care, maybe it's the education system. We can always go up that ladder. Maybe it's just poverty in general. But that first rung, the first basic root cause is they're without a home. Well, here's your solution. So if we can take somebody experiencing homelessness and put them in a home, they are no longer, by definition, homeless. It's that simple. And while the solution is that simple, executing it is very, very complicated and difficult. And so in the past, we had lots of agencies doing amazing work, but they were doing it with their own goals and their own strategies. And there's really no method to the madness. Everybody was doing their work, in a silo. And now we say, let's really transition ourselves to actually be a homeless response system to where every agency has specific duties and jobs, and it fits into a larger system. And so if one cog is not doing the job, it affects all the others. But what we can now do is we can right size our system. We can say, hey, we have duplicity here and we have voids over there. Maybe we can take the duplicity and fill the voids. Let's make sure that system is built to be fully operational from A to Z. And let's make sure there are no holes, there are no cracks. Let's streamline the duplicity, and we can do all this to really push impact. And that's what it's all this about. This is all about maximizing impact. So now we're under a system. Over 100 different agencies are part of that system, and we branded it the Way Home. And that means that it's shared goals and shared strategies used by all those agencies. And the Way Home has its own governance, and that is a steering committee. The Way Home is kind of the public term for the technical term, which is called a continuum of care. So the biggest piece of homeless funding bypasses the city, and it bypasses the county, and it comes straight from the federal government to our continuum of care. And that continuum of care has a steering committee. But we wanted our continuum of care to be more than just about that wad of money, to really set the priorities and help guide the entire system, no matter the funding stream that it's being used. And so there's a broad, diverse array of people with lived experiences, government representatives, philanthropic representatives, folks from the VA, from healthcare, from service agencies that are all on that governance. It has a lead administrative agency that also does the planning, and we in Houston utilize the Coalition for the Homeless as that lead agency. We did a lot of strategic planning. Back in 2011, we did a 3-day community charrette with nearly 400 individuals. And from that, we said, hey, let's focus on housing as the intervention, and let's really focus on how we can maximize our impact. And so the homeless plan is not Mayor Turner's plan. It's not just the city's plan. It is actually our entire community. It's a community plan. And that community plan is the city's plan. It is the mayor's plan. It is the county's plan. And so instead of us...
Mark?
Yes?
Can you unshare and share your screen one more time? That the slides I don't think are necessarily working for some reason or showing up. And I know how integral the slides are for your presentation.
Yes, I'm glad you said that.
Thanks.
All right, can you see my screen right here?
We could see that 8,500, number 8.
I'm not even sharing my... It looks like it might be a Teams issue.
Got it. Well, your audio is coming out great, so.
Just 1 second. Are you still seeing my screen?
The same one.
Yeah, so it's showing that I'm not sharing. So I'm going to just leave and come right back. I'm sorry, everybody, for the technical difficulties.
No problem.
We apologize about the technical difficulties. Mark should be back on in a moment. Thank you.
If we have any other questions for Ms. Di Tubbs at this time, we can definitely answer those questions now.
Absolutely. I just put some more information about the intake hours and the contact numbers for the intake coordinator. So if you have some questions, then by all means, you can check that out. And that's my commercial break. Mark, you're back up.
Thank you. And Teams reports back there was a glitch to me, so I apologize. We'll try again. Alrighty.
Looks great.
Great. Alrighty. So the strategy that we all utilize is housing first. And what housing first says is that the old strategy there used to be, which is a lot of people refer to as transitional housing, and then for certain populations and issues, transitional housing is the right intervention. But by and large, for the general homeless population, it has issues, and that is being a lot of times it comes with barriers. So we would say, hey, we have housing for you, but you got to stop smoking, or you got to stop drinking, or you have to go to these classes every single day, or you got to do X, Y, and Z before we'll talk to you. And this all sounds fine and dandy, but what all this is it's barriers. And to somebody who's been on the streets for an extended period of time, the individual will be like, tell me I can't smoke? Forget it, I'll just stay on the streets. So what Housing First does is it gets rid of all of these barriers. And the very first thing we do, the very first thing we do is we put the person into housing, and then we offer them voluntary supportive services there afterwards. So shelters here are no longer the answer to homelessness. What do you call a homeless person in a shelter? Homeless. And so shelters now still play a very important role. They are the front door into our housing system, like Star Hope was talking about. Housing First is the data-proven national best practice. The individuals that we are housing through our housing programs, 90% of them stay housed 2 years after their placement. Before we started doing Housing First, we were happy when we were at like 40, sometimes 50%. And now we're at 90%. The national rate is 80%. So in Houston, we're outpassing even the national success rate. Housing First is all about individual choice. What we have discovered is that when you don't force somebody to do something, and when you make it voluntary, exponentially more people not only engage in what you're offering, but it ends up being more successful at the end of the day. And so the analogy I would use is that, when I was little, well, I'm still little, but when I was younger, I'd be picking up my room, and my mom would come up and tell me to clean my room. I'd be like, I'm not picking it up. You didn't have to tell me that. Once again, when you tell somebody to do something, instead of letting it be their own choice, we've seen that it's not as successful. So once a person gets housed, it's the voluntary supportive services, but over 90% of the people end up taking us up on those supportive services, even though they're voluntary, which is a much higher rate than if we would have mandated it. Housing First and services, and I always say this is fiscally conservative. Some folks say, wow, you're going to continue to pay for housing and services for them? And the answer is for some folks, yes, because it is more expensive to drive by or step over this individual on the streets than it is for us to pay for their housing and services. A misnomer with Housing First is that it's just housing. And that is not true. It's housing and support services. Trying to provide supportive services to somebody on the streets is not successful and cost prohibitive. Usually the person's mind is somewhere else. It's focused on just trying to survive on the streets. But once we can put a person into safe and stable housing, then that individual can fully engage in those supportive services and they're effective. So the housing makes the supportive services effective. Conversely, the supportive services is what helps keep the person housed. So you have to have both to make it successful. So we're focused on creating the actual units of permanent supportive housing. Then we have supportive services that get linked to those units for those individuals. And then we had to create a placement system to get those individuals, once they're assessed, into those units and supportive services. So the first thing is this is what often the community thinks of as supportive of permanent supportive housing or supportive housing. And this is not, this is a lineup at a shelter, not in Houston. This is what the housing looks like in Houston. And these are all housing communities that the city's Housing and Community Development Department has invested in. And you see here that when the department invests in it, it is Class A, it is first class. We want these housing communities to be a positive for the community that they are located in, not detract from it. And when the city's involved in financing it, then the city can create expectations and can effectively monitor it and can respond if there are any issues. Is it still active on yours? Because it kind of went out on mine.
Yes.
Okay,
We can see.
great.
We can see the housing project, the housing apartments.
Great. It is. So we don't have enough time nor money to just build from the ground up. So we also go to the open market. And so the coalition has a huge landlord engagement team, and that's what they do is they're going around and talking to landlords and apartment owners at apartment communities spread throughout the region. Some of these we might just have one unit at, some we might just have 20 units at, and we're really just trying to piece together and get those units, as many as possible, to actually lease out to these individuals. One big difference between housing first and transitional housing is that transitional housing, there's usually an end date when the client, graduates from that program. But sometimes the issue is that now the client, once they graduate from that program, now they have to go find a unit. And finding that unit that would be willing to lease to them might have been the reason why they were homeless in the first place. What supportive housing does and Housing First does is the client is the one actually signing a lease. So even when they're no longer in the Way Home program, they can continue to stay at that unit because it's their unit and it's in their name. We work with apartment, once again, landlords, owners all the time through the coalition, helping head this up. We have lower eviction rates and cost than the general population. It's guaranteed rent and utility. If there's 20 units, you'll get a check for all 20 units at one time. And then there's supplemental tenant management and services provided because every person that's housed gets a case manager. And so if a landlord has an issue with a tenant, they don't have to go to the tenant. They just go to the case manager and the case manager will handle it for them. But this is really, really huge. Getting these units is really a major factor in us being able to be successful as a region at reducing homelessness. Once they're housed, then they get integrated services that are provided to them to meet their needs. And the way we get them housed is through a system called coordinated access. Think of it as like a Priceline system, or it's Expedia, or any one of those type of systems. The individual gets assessed, and then after that assessment for both housing and income, it comes up with what places are available and if they're eligible for it. If the individual has a pet, what places, what programs, can they go into for that? And they can do real-time wait lists and referrals. So the question comes up, where are people getting assessed at? Well, one of the places is Star of Hope. So when an individual, once again, goes into that shelter is the front door into our housing system, and they are getting assessed there at the shelters. They're getting assessed at the day shelters, like the Beacon. And for individuals, they're getting assessed, for instance, if they're at the sobering center. And for individuals who aren't engaging with different homeless service providers that are doing the engagements, outreach will assess them out in the field, and that happens on a regular basis. And you can see huge impact here. This is not a correlation. This is direct causation. From when we started this program in 2012, you can see we started housing people, and these are the housing placements in that blue line. And you can start seeing we start having major drops. This is chronic homelessness, and chronic homelessness is our most vulnerable individuals. They've been on the streets an extended period of time, and they have a disability. But you can see 76% reduction in chronic homelessness in the first 4 years when we started this. Today, we've permanently housed over 23,000 homeless individuals. This is huge. And once again, the majority of individuals stay housed in the long term. And when I say we, once again, it's not the mayor's office, it's not my office, it's not just the city, but it's collectively our community is doing it. It's amazing agencies out there that are doing it, and the housing department plays an integral role of providing leadership and funding as well. But this is huge, over more than 23,000 individuals. And here's the impact of that. So that blue line at the top is our total population. First, I want to draw your attention to that red circle. The green line is our unsheltered, and the brown line is our sheltered. What you'll see is prior to that red circle, we used to have more people on our streets than in the shelters. And that shows that our system was not operating correctly or efficiently. And you'll see we started once again this initiative in 2012, and in that very first year, we were able to flip that. And starting in that year, we now have more individuals sheltered than on the streets, and it has stayed that way. We've had huge reductions from 2000 and since we started 2012 all the way to 2017. However, that next round circle, you'll see we had our first increase. What happened in 2017 to where we would have seen an increase between 2017 and 2018? Hurricane Harvey. And then you can see that entire increase was seen in our street population, our unsheltered population. Surveying at the time reveals that nearly 19% of our unsheltered population and nearly 50% of our first-time homeless population were all homeless because of Hurricane Harvey. And that's been an issue because we have not really been able to get back to pre-Harvey levels since then. I think it's really helpful to put what we're doing in context. Because how do we know if what we're doing is good if we don't have anything to compare it to? And so this is Houston compared to the other cities, main regions in the state. And once again, a lot of these other cities are spending millions and doing a lot of work on homelessness. But is it getting a reduction in homelessness? And that's what we care about. One concept we've really focused on is utilization does not mean impact. So we can build a bunch of great facilities, and and we have a lot of programs, and they can all be fully utilized. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to reduce homelessness. And what we're focused in Houston is reducing homelessness. Here's where we compare against other major cities in the country. Now, the blue line is 2011, and the orange line is 2020. What two cities you don't see on here is New York and LA. New York has over 80,000 homeless individuals, and LA has nearly around, I believe it's 60 now. If I had those on here, you would not be able to see the other bars. But you can see where have cities gone between 2011 and 2020, and it's not even close to the reduction that Houston has had with a 57% reduction. Most of the housing, most of all of our money, because remember, we are focused on solving homelessness, and we put our money where our mouth is, and so most of all of our money goes into housing here. And you'll see the two main different types of housing interventions we utilize. Permanent supportive housing, used for our most vulnerable individuals, and it is long-term. And then rapid rehousing, which is short-term. These are for lower vulnerable individuals, a lot of families, a lot of folks that are in shelters. And this is short-term rental assistance. So rental assistance could be for a year, and it could be up to 2 years. And as the rental assistance goes down, the individual's responsibility goes up. And so it's not a cutting off cold turkey. It's a gradual process. And they still have case management. It's a lower level of services to meet their needs because they have lower acuity levels than those that are chronically homeless. Now, this might look like a lot, and this money does not include capital development funds, but the $43 million is really not a lot. We are using about 99% of federal dollars to do all this. We are the only major city in the nation that does not put any local dollars into homelessness. As much as the mayor would love to put local dollars into homelessness, we just don't have any, unfortunately. So we really try to utilize the federal funds. We put the least amount of money into homelessness than most other major cities. Austin, for instance, puts $60 million alone of their own local dollars into homelessness a year. That's not even including the federal dollars that is the only source that Houston utilizes. So we have to use our funding strategically and stretch it as far as we can go. Here's that big reduction we talked about. And we did that big reduction by not utilizing, we didn't utilize any new sources of funding. We just used our pre-existing ones, and we used it in a targeted fashion, utilizing best practices. And that's what got us that big reduction. However, as you saw, we have plateaued. And what we need is additional funding. All the money that we're getting every year is going to keeping the homeless who are housed. If we want to house additional people, it takes additional money. And so this was a rallying call, and what was unique in Houston as compared to most cities, we have a really well-oiled system that can house lots of vulnerable people very quickly. But what we were missing is the gas, to make that engine run. We were missing the money. Now, and that was kind of a rallying cry we kept on saying, and the mayor kept on searching for where the money could come from. But then COVID hit. And COVID, if we look at trying to turn a crisis into an opportunity, provided some federal dollars. And one of the key cornerstone funding programs is our COVID homeless housing program. And this is a huge program of the housing departments. And they are a huge partner in this. The goal is to house 5,000 individuals over 2 years. And I can tell you, we're pretty much already there after 1 year. It's a $65 million program utilizing primarily federal COVID dollars. It's a joint project between the city and the county. So a lot of people know city and county don't always work together. We are lockstep on this program. It's very exciting. And then we work with the coalition as our lead coordinator to making this happen, and with all the different agencies that are working together on this. And it's really using housing as our infectious disease control response within the homeless community. And it's had a major impact. So here are our housing numbers of individuals who've been housed. This red line is where we would be without this program, without these dollars. And so we have exponentially increased the number of people we're housing. And so it's not just good enough to house people. You have to house more homeless every month than are individuals falling into homelessness to get a net reduction. And that's what we're really focused on. Here you can see the monthly housing placements. This is where we were before the program started in September. And look at that, huge increases, nearly tenfold in March. And so it's really, like I said, we have a system, we have an engine, it was just missing the gas. Finally, we put the gas in, and look at that impact. It's also helped us really cut the amount of time it was taking to house somebody nearly in half. And you'll see locations prior, most of the people are unsheltered. We are housing people out of the shelters in that red part. And then you'll see the 17% of housed. Well, how's that happening? I thought this is for the CHIP program is allowing us to do prevention work for the first time. And so this is for people. The way it works is that for individual who's facing eviction, they're going through the department's amazing eviction prevention program or rental assistance program that the department has up, and they've worked with the county on. However, if they've already been evicted, then they go to the COVID homeless housing program's diversion program. We're diverting them away from a homeless shelter and the homeless system by providing some short rental assistance and other services to them to keep them out of our shelters and to keep them off the streets. And so that's why we have on here people that were housed prior to us assisting them. And it's had a big impact. So we did a count in 2021. Only half the jurisdictions out there actually did a point-in-time count. And what the number shows a huge decrease. You did not hear the mayor talk about it, and you didn't hear others talk about it. And the real reason is that there was just so many unknowns this year. We were counting during a pandemic, and then the count was spread over some days, and we just didn't want to go out there and say, we're doing an amazing job and we're solving it when we don't know if, next year it's going to shoot back up. So we were very cautious. But what it showed was a 30% reduction in homelessness. Now, if I was to do some math here, I'd probably say at least 15 to 20% reduction in homelessness is real and is true. And that's because through the CHIP program, we housed 1,000 people in the months right before the count. And so that is going to impact your count. And so you're seeing a huge impact that this COVID homeless housing program, and a huge impact of when we have a large, robust housing program, can have on our homeless population. And what this is allowing us to do for the first time really is really focus on decommissioning encampments. So this was 500 Fannin Street downtown. Some people called this Cardboard City. There's the before and after photos. Where did everybody go? Did we just put them in jail? No. Did they just move over to the next corner? No. The answer is they were all housed. 91% of the individuals were permanently housed out of that location, and we were able to effectively decommission that encampment. Same thing, here's another one. This one is around 45 and I-10. These individuals had to walk on the highway to access this encampment. Every person living there was housed, and the encampment was able to be decommissioned and is still cleared today. Here's another location at Cross Timbers, or this is at Victory in 45. Once again, 93% of the folks being housed. So a lot of times people say, well, these people don't want housing. No, they might not want an emergency shelter, but they will take us up on housing. That's why we're focused on housing, because that's what gets people off the streets. Here's at Allen Parkway, right by downtown, in the 45 on-ramp to 45 North. Look at that huge difference in the before and after. Once again, they were housed. And it really is a huge effort here. We have housing navigation stations. We have Metro providing the transportation from the encampment to their new housing unit. We have outreach teams really doing all the engagement and the navigation. And then once people are housed, then we have other teams come in and do the cleaning. You can see we want to respect private property rights. And so, the outreach teams and navigators are working with the individuals. That red circle is showing a tag that says the individual said that this is trash, can be thrown away. Other items are in clear bags, go to storage. Some other items get moved into their housing unit. And it takes a ton of agencies. To the general public, it looks like in 1 week everybody was housed. But it took about a month and a half to pull it all off. And we're really thankful to the coalition for helping coordinate it, and to all the agencies that play a role into that. Big lessons learned with encampments is the key is preventing displacement. When you go in and you just do enforcement, what happens is folks just go down to the next corner, or they go further into a neighborhood in places that may even be less desirable for the community. And so we don't want to keep on playing this cat and mouse game. Once again, we want to solve it. And we can solve it by getting folks permanently off the streets, by putting them into permanent housing. And that is why we do this at the end of the day. No two encampments are the same. We're putting enough resources into it. The question's not going to be if we get to an encampment, it will just be when. We've run into some size limitations on some of these encampments, but we're overcoming that. The big issue right now is that we are running out of one-bedroom units. While one-bedroom units exist out there, remember these units, they have to be willing to lease to our clients too. And so as soon as we can get more units on, and we're always looking for landlords and community for help to find those units, we can start housing more people once again, and we can start helping holistically decommission encampments. Under Mayor Turner's leadership, the city has invested more dollars into homelessness than ever in the history of the city. And it's reaped benefits, because as a region, we've been able to house more people than we have ever before housed. Now we finally have the funding to make that machine run. Now we just need to get even more units so that we can continue to bring it to scale. And to keep it going, to enhance our activities and keep it going, is what we're calling CHIP 2.0. And this is another I'm so thankful to the housing department because this is another big initiative of them. We want to keep that COVID homeless housing program going. And our next goal is to put more of these federal funds into it so that we can cut our homeless population in half again. We've become the first major city in the world to not only cut it in half one time, but do it 2 times. And we can do this by basically ending chronic homelessness, reducing, decommissioning all of our large and medium-sized encampments, and really becoming a bellwether for the country and for the world. But once again, it's the amazing organizations like Star Hope and like the housing department that are doing the real work and making this happen. So I appreciate everybody's patience and understanding. Everybody gets a medal for making it through this, and we'll take questions.
Thank you, Mark. So we're going to go ahead and take questions, and if they can please place the questions in the chat, and then we'll have Mark answer any of the questions anyone has.
All right. Okay. The first question in the chat is, this is for Mark. What is the success rate for persons that have remained housed?
Yeah, so we look at recidivism rates, and so the person is a success for us if the person stays permanently housed. That doesn't mean they even stay in that unit, but they stay permanently housed. Because some people, if somebody exits out of a unit or out of our programs, there's a positive exit, which could be living with family or going on their own and getting a different unit, or there could be a negative exit, and a negative exit is a return back into homelessness or back on the streets. And so that's where we look at it as what HUD really tracks is the 2-year rate, and that's where we're at 90% of the individuals who are permanently housed stay housed. And so all the time, folks will say, listen, I see these people on the street. There's no way you can just put them into a housing place. They need you need to work on them before you house them. What we have found is that's not true. The vast majority of those individuals, when placed into housing with wraparound supportive services, will stay successfully housed. There's a lot of individuals that suffer from behavioral health issues in our community, maybe family members, maybe our next door neighbor. We just don't see it because it normally happens in the confines and privacy of their own home. It's different for an individual without a home because they don't have those walls. So we're seeing it. And so there is a small population of individuals that are homeless who are so severe, they do need to be stabilized before we can house them. But it's a very small percentage. And we worked with the county, and we have now a homeless mental health housing center. It's a $10 million facility, and it's being operated by the Harris Center. And that's where individuals experiencing homelessness go that are at that high vulnerability rates, who we can't house, to stabilize so that we can permanently house them.
All right. The next question that we have, where can a person get a referral other than Star of Hope? How long is the wait list? Is there requirements that a person must meet before a person gets assistance?
Okay, so yes, and one of the best ways to do it is just calling 211.
Yeah.
And so 211 will do an initial assessment, and then there will be there's a line that they will give them the number to, or will call them, and they will do that assessment with that individual. There's other agencies out there. So if a person is working with Search, or they're going to other homeless shelters, or they're going to the Beacon, or the main offices of Coordinated Access are at the Beacon, all those different agencies are doing assessments as well. But it starts with that assessment. How long does it take really depends on where the individual falls on the list, because we house people based on vulnerability, not visibility. And so through that assessment, they will figure out where that person and what program that person gets placed into, which is so the one nice thing is, instead of every agency running their own programs and all having different assessments, we have one standardized assessment. The only way to get assistance for homeless housing is through the Coordinated Access Hub. And so it's all standardized, it's all centralized. So no matter where that person gets assessed by, it goes into that. That assessment will dictate which intervention is the right one for them. And there's different wait times based on the different interventions as well. And so I think the one thing I want to say is that it's not immediate. A lot of work goes into it. Everything that happens from assessment and referral to being housed, because we're using federal dollars, we have to verify disabilities. We have to verify income. We have to actually verify homeless status. We have to verify disability. We got to get, IDs together and sometimes birth certificates. So there's a lot, and then go find the unit. And so a lot of work goes into that. And so that's what sometimes it might be 30 days. Sometimes it might be 120 days. And so it all kind of depends on the different requirements, how quickly that can go, how much the client can help out, and how much housing is available. So there's a ton of different elements that get placed into that. I'm sorry, I can't give you, a specific answer on that. Are there specific requirements? There's not. I mean, different programs have different requirements, but the housing assessment figures all that out. The very first step for anybody is to do that housing assessment. Now, what do we mean by homeless? And this is what I really want to focus on. That's the main requirement, is we go by literal homelessness. So that means the person is not staying in a place fit for human habitation. So what does that mean? If the person is staying in a motel on their own, they are not homeless. If the person is staying at a friend's house or family's house, they are not homeless. If a person is, but if a person's living in a car, that is not meant for human habitation. They are homeless. If they're living on a boat, like in Clear Lake, we have homeless people living on boats in Clear Lake. If a person has a house that has no plumbing and dirt floors, and it's not meant for habitation, they would be homeless. That's a little bit, the one tricky thing that for our diversion program, it's a little bit different, because these are people who are not literally homeless yet, but they will ask questions to determine if the chances are that they could fall into literal homelessness. The homeless system is not meant to be the safety net for everybody. It is meant for those folks who fall through the cracks of all those other safety nets, all those other systems. There's thousands of organizations that work with people facing general poverty. The homeless system is even below that, and that's what it is really, really strategically focused on.
All right. The next question is the Housing First program currently being implemented?
Oh, yes. Housing First has been implemented since 2012, and we've not stopped doing it. It's being implemented. Our levels that you saw are still higher than what it's ever been because of the COVID homeless housing program. But some of our unsheltered housing is being reduced right now until we find more units. But yes, Housing First. And for if anybody's on here with an agency that wants to work with the homeless or is working with the homeless but is not part of our system, it's really important that you are part of the way home. The city will not fund you if you are not part of the region's response. Because once again, we're trying to maximize our dollars. By maximizing it, we want on a coordinated program. So that means unless you have to be part of the coordinated program and you have to be, focused on the data-proven best practices, which is Housing First. If you want to get involved in the way home, I really suggest you reach out to the Coalition for the Homeless, and they can meet with you, provide you all the details, and have those conversations.
This one is for DITUBS. Your program, would it be considered transitional housing?
No. So it is low barrier housing with no strings attached, and the individuals are signing a lease And so even if it's short-term assistance we're providing, they continue to stay in that apartment unit because it's their apartment unit.
So what is the difference between transitional housing? What is transitional housing?
So typically transitional housing is short-term. Some programs might be 6 months, some might be a year, some might be 18 months, for instance. Typically, you enter into a program, and the programs have typically some requirements that go with that. And once you end that program, then you have to go and find another unit. What's different is that, and typically transitional housing, it's not voluntary. The stuff that you have to engage in to be part of that program. Housing First is completely voluntary. The services that are offered are completely voluntary, and there is no expiration for you staying in that unit. So even if you are done with the program, and you can continue to stay in that unit because it's your unit. Additionally, Housing First, is low barrier and has no strings attached to it in terms of requirements. So that's the difference between transitional housing, seen as it's can be utilized successfully per the federal government for substance abuse, for domestic violence, for mental health, we have much better. The data shows much better success rates in Housing First models of permanent housing. Here's a misnomer. This is like global warming. People say global warming, and you're blaming global warming, but it's cold outside. So it's kind of a bad term to use the term permanent housing, because that doesn't mean that everybody gets a housing unit permanently forever. There are some folks who are the chronically homeless, or most vulnerable, will get a housing unit and services long term. But rapid rehousing, which is a form of permanent housing, it's only short term rent assistance you're getting. The reason it's called permanent housing is because even when that person is done with our program, they're done with the case manager and receiving the rental assistance and receiving the support services, when they're done with that housing unit they are in is their housing unit, and they can stay in it. And they're not having to be back on out there trying to traverse the 600 square miles to find a magical unit at some magical complex that's willing to lease to them with their challenging background.
All right. Let's see. Do we have any questions?
The question is, what is that small percentage of those that require services prior to housing? So typically for cities, and this is how it first started with the city of Houston, is that it was only about 5%. However, because we've reduced our so what happens is these are individuals who need some services before we can house them. So we housed a ton of individuals, except for that 5%. So our homeless population has shrunk dramatically, and that 5% is still there, and now that 5% is around 15 to 20%. It hasn't grown, it stayed the same, but because our homeless population has decreased so much, it's at a higher percentage. So for most cities that are just starting on Housing First and just starting on really, trying to do, collective impact programs to reduce homelessness, it's typically around 5%. In Houston right now, around 15 to 20.
Okay. All right. Okay, we have one more.
And the answer is no. Is this for the city or Houston and Harris County included? So this is a regional homeless response, and this regional homeless response includes the city, Harris County, Fort Bend County, and Montgomery County. So all three. Now, gets a little tricky there. Is that with the COVID homeless housing program, that is just between the city and the county. but it's part of the plan that all 3 counties have embraced and are utilizing and are focused on. But that COVID homeless housing program, once again, is a program being funded by both Harris County and the city. And so this is different here. Not one person has, ownership of it. It's truly the community that has ownership over it, which is really unique compared to a lot of other cities. But in a lot of other cities, the city's doing their own route, the county's going in a different direction, their chamber of commerce is going another route, their homeless agencies are going another route, and you're not getting any true impact because everybody's working on their own thing and going in different directions, almost competing against themselves. Here in Houston, we're all completely aligned, and that really allows us to be able to maximize our dollars and maximize our impact.
Okay. Ms. Di Tubbs, I have a question. The program for Adopt a Family during Christmas, are you looking for nonprofits or organizations, or can an individual family adopt a family?
All of the above, Latasha. It can be an individual, a corporate organization, a corporation, a nonprofit, a family, a group of you and your friends can come together, all of the above.
So what is the deadline for this?
The registration for any sponsor that would like to adopt a family opens up on October the 15th, and it closes, I believe, right before Thanksgiving, because we want all of our sponsors to have time to do shopping during the Thanksgiving holiday break, especially on that Good Friday.
All right. And I know during this time, the holidays, it seems like everyone has the spirit of volunteering. Do you have opportunities that individuals can come volunteer with your section?
The outreach team is always open to having volunteers to come do ride along with us during the time of holiday season because we're always serving daily. Like I said before, I have those 3 outreach case managers who go out on the street daily. And so they could actually either call me or one of the 3 outreach case managers. I don't know if you all had a chance to screenshot that information in regards to our contact information. And you can directly connect with one of those gentlemen to say, I would like to do a ride along on November the 15th at 10 a.m. Is this time available? Of course, we would also like you to get plugged into the volunteer department so that way you'll have an opportunity to understand our protocols and processes as it relates to volunteering at the Star of Hope. But yes, we welcome volunteers during the holiday season. If not doing a ride along in my department, there's also an opportunity to work in our Christmas warehouse where you're able to sort various gifts that have been donated by various donors, as well as do gift wrapping.
And I just want to add, the city does not provide any direct services for the homeless. The city provides funding through the housing department and leadership. We really depend on those 100 different agencies, and one of those is Star of Hope. Not just doing the shelter, but also doing outreach among other activities. And their outreach teams is amazing. And that's one thing, having a coordinated system, is that there's lots of agencies out there that have outreach, but we want the outreach to be coordinated, everything to get coordinated to drive that impact. And Star of Hope is a partner. They're there at those meetings. They're working with the coalition and with the other agencies that do outreach. So there's a method to the madness to really drive that impact. And Dimitri over there has amazing a team, and we're thankful for the work that they do.
All right. Well, I will give.
Thanks, Mark. We love working with you guys as well. We do it better together.
Look at you and your sings. We like that. So,
Kumbaya. and I just want to, for those, it can't be further stated that the bulk of the work, I coordinate different departments inside the city around this shared vision, but the biggest department that has the most to do and does a ton on it is the housing department. And it comes from funding different service agencies. It comes from funding bricks and sticks of the housing. It comes from funding outreach. It comes from funding all those different things. And the funds and all the work and all, it's more than just money. So much work goes into it. And it's a yeoman's job, and sometimes a thankless job. But it's a job that gets done and is integral from the housing department.
All right. Wow, that was a lot of information and good information. We all know someone who may be facing homelessness or is homeless already. So it's to get the word out. And are there any other questions out there from the public? And if there isn't, this will be on our webpage, and we really appreciate the both of you coming on. It's probably one of the best lunch and learns we've had, so I want to thank the both of you for that. And if there's anything we can do to assist you guys at all, let us know, and we'll do the same and reach out to you two individuals for help if we need it. But we definitely want to take this time out to thank the both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you too. You guys have a great weekend. Be blessed. And if you ever need me to speak again or I can refer another department, we would love to definitely do this again.
Thank you, Ms. Tubbs. We really appreciate it.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Now for our upcoming outreach event, we have our 360 Roads to Home Ownership series. This will be given twice on October 19th from 12 to 1. Also on October the 21st, 6 to 7 p.m. And that is going to be in 2021.
I want to take a moment to thank everyone for joining us for today's Lunch and Learn. We really appreciate the great speakers that we had. They gave us a wealth of information. Again, if you guys have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to anyone in the Housing and Community Development Department that was introduced at the beginning of the meeting. That's on the outreach team. We're always there, willing to help answer your questions. Please reach out to us if you have any questions. Thank you guys for joining us and have a great weekend.